All right, welcome back to the Hunting Pastor, episode number 2. And so you need to know that I'm actually pretty excited about this. I feel like I get to do some things that I've wanted to do for a long time right now, and I'm kind of stoked about that. So I wanted to really just kind of start out these podcasts by just giving you some updates about what this is going to be about. And I know I did that last week a little bit, but the real deal that this is going to be out is mostly about hunting and how to become a hunter if you've not done it before. That's kind of a main thing. For me, I didn't have anyone to teach me. And I talked about that in episode 1. I didn't really have anyone to teach me or show me how to do things. And I gained a ton of value as a hunter from people that really had put their content out online that were free to me, free, available things, and I'll mention some of them and tag some of them in my Instagram posts and things like that as I go forward and things like that. If you have not had a chance to check things out, let me just again ask you to like and subscribe. It makes a big difference for me as I try to grow this channel and grow this podcast. And so that makes a big impact for me. So like and subscribe and share it if you could. I'd really appreciate you sharing this with other people. Also, you can go to my Instagram, the Hunting Pastor 307, and give a like and a follow there as well. So again, give a like and a follow on the Instagram post as well. So we'll have to edit that last little thing out. So as we get started here, today is really about how to become a hunter when you've not ever hunted before. And one of the things that I do is I kind of map out a plan for my year. And let me just kind of give you an update about what I've got going on in the next few episodes, next few videos that I'm working on, and then also for the fall and things that I've got going on my own in kind of my own little world here. So the first thing I want to just tell you about is you've noticed, I think, if you're looking at this video, you've probably seen my YouTube channel and what I'm putting on there. And I began to kind of share the first elk hunt that I ever went on. You saw the day 1 stuff that day. Now, I want to just preface that hunt was wildly unsuccessful. We didn't even hear spoiler alert. We didn't even hear an elk bugle until the very last day of our hunt. So there's going to be a lot of hiking and a lot of talking and a lot of just really beautiful scenery because we hunted the Wasatch Front, which is just some of the most incredible topography that I've ever seen and some of the most rugged mountains I've hunted. And I mean that actually now by, at this point I've hunted multiple different mountain ranges and gone up and down multiple different mountains and hunted as high as 11,000 feet. But nothing was as brutal up and down and just knife ridges left and right. It was really hard country, the Wasatch Front. And not only was it hard country, it was incredibly crowded. I mean, dang. You couldn't get on a trail that wasn't also a hiking trail, a running trail, a biking trail, people coming in and out on day walks. And it was just a different thing to hunt the Wasatch and made it incredibly challenging. And any hunter that you'll talk to will tell you how hard it is to get into that country and hunt it and actually be successful. Which we were not. We were not successful. We were able to see one guy got himself a mule deer, but neither one of us were hunting deer on that trip. Actually, a friend of mine had his deer tag, but we were looking for elk, and I didn't have the money to buy a elk tag and a deer tag at the same time. So the couple of times that I had deer in front of me within shooting range, wouldn't it go to figure that I didn't have a tag for it, so I couldn't shoot anything. So good time. It was a good time for sure, but unsuccessful. But you'll see more of that. And we've got some predator hunting videos that are going to come up. And then we're just about at that time where, we're in out-of-state tag. You're putting in for your draws for out-of-state tags and things like that. We're in draw season now. So I'll start talking about hunting plans soon, and I'm going to do some gear videos, kind of a what's in my pack, what it is that I carry when I go hunting, and I'll break that down and do some more specific stuff on, what I do for my medical kit and my emergency kit and my fire starters and things like that, and I'll probably even do some, just kind of, I guess bushcrafting is a bit of a stretch for what I'm thinking of, but I'll definitely talk about, how to start a fire, how to set up a shelter if you have an emergency situation, what I do, different things for getting myself out of trouble if I ever get into it. And so, knock on wood, I haven't gotten into trouble yet in the backcountry, at least not any real big trouble, but, hopefully that never happens. But, what do you do if it does, that kind of stuff. So, let me just kind of launch into our episode for today, Hunting Pastor episode 2, and that's going to be how to start hunting or how to learn how to hunt. So without further ado, here we go. All right, welcome back. So you want to become a hunter, you want to start hunting, and you have no idea how to do it. You may come from a state where hunting just isn't really a thing that everyone does and talks about. I know that it's a rarity, at least in urban city centers, to talk about in some places. Like it's not a real big thing to talk about in California. It's not. When I grew up in California, if you hunted, primarily it was probably duck hunting or goose hunting or something like that. And I'm thinking of big cities where people don't talk about hunting very much. Now there's plenty of folks that hunt in California. I didn't know that. I didn't learn that until much later. And it's obviously California's politics are pretty liberal. They by and large, even for conservatives, they lean farther left or more moderate than Republicans or conservatives that you'll find in other states. And so just talking about hunting and things like that is not really something that you find a lot of. Not saying that it doesn't happen. It absolutely does. There are outdoorsmen in California for sure. It's just not maybe as widely accepted or talked about as it is here in Wyoming, for instance, or like you'd find in Nebraska or Wisconsin or Ohio or Oklahoma or whatever. It's not as big a thing in California. And so that being the case, you've got to figure out different ways to learn. When you talk to a guy who maybe grew up in Oklahoma. Now, when I started hunting, I was pastoring in Oklahoma. So I learned that a lot of the guys and gals who hunted in Oklahoma were taught by uncles, dads, grandpas, that kind of thing. So it was like a family deal, and they grew up hunting their family farm or the farmland that they worked, at least they had access to, or that kind of stuff. So it's a family affair in a lot of those states, and so dad teaches you to hunt. And I've done that with my kids. My kids have gone out on a few hunts, and I'm the one that took them and taught them, and I'm still in the process of teaching them. But when you don't have that, when you don't have somebody to lean on for that information, you've got to do a few things differently. And so this is how to learn to hunt. The first thing you got to do is you have to become a student. It's actually a really big deal. You've got to become a student. You've got to be, you got to take on this posture of learning how to do something. And so you've got to go and find information. Now, for a student, there are curriculums and things like that, and it's handed to you, right? If you're in school, your teacher hands you material. Well, where did that material come from? Well, largely that material was probably developed by somebody, and in a lot of university settings, that curriculum is developed by either a content specialist or what they call a a subject matter expert, and you've got to kind of find where those subject matter experts are, and begin to be a student and put that information together and find that information. And so, the first thing that you need to do is become a student. So, in our day and age, we've got a ton of things at our disposal, right? We've got the internet. You're here listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, and you're finding it on the internet. Now, the cool thing about YouTube is that because it is actually a really generous platform, so if somebody is successfully viral and gets a lot of views and a lot of subscribers, they can make a decent living, though I have no idea what it is yet because I haven't broken that threshold. I have no idea what that looks like for a content provider yet, but that information is out there too. But because that's the case, people feel like it's worth it to put out good content and good information. And a lot of the folks in the hunting sphere, the hunting industry, they actually care about getting other people into the hunting industry. They want to keep it as a heritage for our kids growing up. We don't want hunting to go away. And so as a hunter, it behooves us. It makes sense for us to make sure that you have access to content and access to information. So if you're a new hunter, you just have to do a search. You could go right now on Google and type in how to hunt, or go on DuckDuckGo and learn how to hunt, and type in how to hunt, or how to learn how to hunt. And you'll find all kinds of stuff about how to hunt, and you'll have to decide, what it is that you want to hunt. Do you want to hunt predators? You don't really want to eat game meat, but you want to protect farm animals and protect game animals from predation. And so you want to thin out those predators. And so you could be a coyote hunter or whatever. Or you might just say, you know what, I want to know where my meat comes from. I want to make sure that I'm eating good, organic, no hormones have touched it meat. And I want to hunt deer, and or I want to hunt whitetail, or I want to hunt mule deer, or you figure out the animal you want to hunt. That's kind of the first step to becoming a student, is really figuring out what kind of hunting you want to do, what kind of animal you want to hunt. For me, I love to hunt deer, and I love to hunt elk. And I love that because those animals are incredibly tough. I think they're incredibly beautiful, and I do think they're incredibly tasty. And they also are very elusive animals. They're ghosts. They don't make it easy for you to kill them and hunt them. They really don't. And so it's not like, shooting fish in a barrel by any stretch. So there's a challenge to it. And but that's me. You might go, hey, I want to hunt trophies, and I want big horns on my wall, and I don't have anything against that. That's I don't have anything against hunting things with big horns, and I certainly, if you give me the choice between shooting a spike and shooting a really mature bull, and or shooting a 4-point raghorn versus a 6-point mature bull, I'm going to choose to hunt. Probably, if the two of them are within range, I'm going to shoot the bigger of the two. However, I'll tell you this much, and I've always been this way as a hunter, and I think it's always going to be this way for me. I don't care how big the animal is if it provides a shot. I'm out there to be successful and bring meat home. I put an investment into hunting, and so for me, if a spike comes in front of me, I'm probably going to shoot it. And I haven't killed very many elk. I've only killed one elk, actually. I'll say this: I've killed 2 bull elk, and one of them I lost. We lost the blood trail, and weren't able to recover the animal. And the other, it was dead within 90 yards of where I shot him, so I did get to recover him. And he was a spike, and the first one was a raghorn, like maybe a 4-point, 4x4 bull. And it just kind of worked out where those were the animals that came in front of me. And if an animal comes in front of me and provides a shot, I'm just I'm going to take that shot. Because I've seen the holdout and I've seen I didn't, it didn't go home with anything, but it was a great, and that's true. It's always a blast. And I always love going out and being in the backcountry and being in the mountains and chasing elk. But I'll say this, I want to remember that animal by eating parts of him throughout the year. And so going home without any meat is, it's frustrating, especially when you do it multiple seasons in a row. And so I'm an advocate of choosing your hunt. And for me, that is whatever gives me the best chance of being successful. So I want to figure out what animal I'm going to hunt first and then become a student. So I want to just kind of address a few things that I've talked about in terms of becoming a student. The first thing you want to do is read. There are a ton of resources out there for a hunter to assimilate that information, and you're going to read a lot of different things. You can read things on tactics, but one of the things that I think I loved the most in terms of reading is there are a ton of outdoor magazines that put out great content and tell a hunt story. Now, this is kind of like the backbone of all hunting information is the hunting story, and you if you've been around someone who's a hunter and they maybe have, a trophy on the wall or you're eating a game meal and they're giving you some of their venison or whatever it is, they want to tell you the story of how they got that animal. And so they launch into the story and they tell you about how they picked the spot to hunt, how they found the animal they were looking to kill, or how that hunt that morning unfolded. And there's information to be gleaned from that. So I'll tell you one of my hunting stories that where I was successful. Okay. So last year was the first year I brought home meat from my elk hunt. And it was an incredible experience. And the spot I hunted is a spot that myself and a few buddies had found. I scouted this on video. And me and my friends, we did a few phone conversations and also, FaceTime conversations where we were on the internet, on OnX Hunt and on Google Earth and looking at specific areas where we thought might be good, might hold elk. And I had some people that were generous with information for me and telling me where I might find elk in this unit that we were looking at hunting. There are also some folks online who had posted elk hunts from the season before, and we had deduced that this might be where they were hunting based on some of the stuff that we found in their videos that looked familiar, plus events that took place in and around this area where we knew, okay, this is probably the mountain range, at least, that they hunted. We don't know specifically where they hunted, but we think it was a pretty good chance that this is where they hunted. And so we looked at that, and we found areas where there were burns that are traditionally good for elk. Elk will go into an area that previously had burned because the undergrowth, the forest floor, tends to pop up with a lot of greenery if there's water to be had and things like that. And elk just kind of, I don't know why other than that, that's why they go there. But we found that. We found some other stuff. And so we knew where we were going to go. And we had interactions. Like I said, I shot a deer, or I shot an elk that I didn't get to take home. There was bugles in September, so we were able to get on elk and be around elk and back and forth, call back and forth with elk. And so this year was just me. I was flying solo. Now it's really hard to find guys that want to hunt with you or don't already have friends who are hunting, already. And it's just difficult. And so I have solo hunted a lot And it's also difficult to be successful when you're with other people who maybe want to do it differently, have different ideas about where to go, and all of that stuff matters. It factors in. So I went to the same spot that we'd hunted. I hunted the same mountain the very first morning and didn't even hear a bugle until maybe later. And it was probably not an elk. It was probably another hunter. And so I backed out of that area pretty fast and went to the spot that we planned. And it was, on the top of a mountain that is in the area that we hunt. And I don't want to give away too many details about the spot that I went, because I don't want it to be overcrowded, basically. You'll find that as well. There's every once in a while someone will hand you information about their spot. And I'm not unwilling to do that, but I am in a platform like this. And as I'm talking about being a student and telling you my hunting story, I hope that you're gleaning information, but I want to make sure you understand that part of being a successful hunter and being successful in your hunt is you don't have that stuff just handed to you. You've actually got to look for it and find it. And that's, figuring out where you think they're going to be is a big part of becoming a student and becoming successful as a hunter. The spot that I went was about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away from my base camp, and then 3.5 mile hike in. So I'm 5.5 miles from my base camp, and parked at the bottom of this mountain at a trailhead, hike up the hill 3.5 miles in, and my first day hiking in, I'm set up to go 3 days or so in my pack. And so I've got about 45 pounds on my back, maybe 55, including water and everything, and my bow and all that stuff. And so I primarily like to archery hunt. I don't have anything against rifle hunts, and I do them every year, but I take my animals with my bow. I just feel like it's a way more fun challenge to bring the animal in that close. And it gives you a lot more time that you can hunt than rifle seasons typically do. So, depending on your state and what you're hunting and the area you're hunting in and all that. So, I hike in the afternoon. I did the morning hunt. That didn't work. I knew that wasn't going to be a good spot that year. And so I went back to camp and I got my gear together after I took a nap because I was tired. And I packed all my food and everything, and I headed up the hill. So, after a decent lunch, I start hiking up the hill, and I get to the trail that I take up this mountain. It goes up the south side of the mountain primarily, and right up to the top, right up to the peak of the mountain that I was hunting. And I knew that I had to get over the peak to the north-facing side, and the northeast side of this mountain, there's just a bunch of draws, and the elk love it. And so I hike in, and when I get right to where the trail ends and you have to go off trail, I spooked about 250 head of elk. Now, that's just about as exciting as it gets, because you're going, oh, okay, I found where they are. And they run across the mountain, and I watch them all run, and there's some good bulls in there, and there's a bunch of cows, and I'm thinking, oh, this is just going to work really well. I might even kill one tomorrow. So I hike in, I find a flat spot where there's a couple of healthy trees, because I hammock camp. I carry a hammock with me. And that's primarily because I have a bad back, and sleeping on the ground is just not a prospect that works well for me. I'll do it if I have to, but I'd much rather be in a hammock because it's just more comfortable. And so I get myself set up, and I call, and sure enough, elk are screaming around me, and so I knew it was going to be a good day. So, there really wasn't an evening hunt for me. it was just get to camp. It was dark by the time I got there and got everything set up. And so, I started a small fire, and I had dinner and just kind of enjoyed the outdoors, and it was great. And I woke up early the next morning and got coffee, and I didn't break camp down because I was thinking I'm on the top of this mountain. I'm going to spike camp from here, and I'll come back to this spot every night unless I just don't see anything and don't hear anything, and then I'll move. So I get up and I get myself set up, and I think I'm going to go down the hill because I'm close to the top of the hill. I'm maybe half a mile hike from the top of the mountain. And so I get my pack and get my gear and start bugling. And when you know it, below me, there's a bull blowing. And so off I go. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got to figure out how to not spook this bull, because the wind in the morning, when you're in the mountains, it's almost universally true, and that's not true. It's common, and traditionally, and most of the time, the wind in the morning goes downhill. Now, it can be just a really bad windstorm up there, and it can go wherever it wants to go and be what they call a prevailing wind, but the thermal winds typically will fall in the morning. When the air is the coolest, it will fall, and it's the coolest typically on the north and east sides of the mountain, and it falls down in the morning until around 10 o'clock in the morning or so, and that's when it starts. The air is heated up enough that the air begins to rise, and so the wind will go drifting up the hill. So the air's going downhill, and so I don't have a great wind, and I'm trying to figure out by my ear. I'm calling back and forth to this bull and these cows and trying to figure out where he is so that I can get where my wind is off to the side of them. I don't want my wind to cross them, because what's that going to do? It's going to spook them. And so I'm kind of going down, and every once in a while I'll stop with the binos and look, and I'm cow calling because this bull isn't really responding to a closer bull call. He's responding basically to the cow calls. And then he pipes off, and I realize that he's 40 yards, 50 yards from me probably. I'm way inside his bubble. So I get nervous now because, again, I've got a bad wind. He's below me. I know he's below me by now, and my wind is going downhill, and I'm just terrified that I'm going to spook him, but I got to try and figure something else out. And so that's when I noticed the snout of a cow from the other side of a rock. So I'm like 60 yards roughly from this cow, and she busts. I don't know if she caught my wind. I think that's what happened. So she takes off, and then a minute later, about 12 other cows take off, and this big bull, big 6x6 mature bull, takes off chasing those cows, and they go out in front of me about 40 yards and into the trees, and I watch them into the trees, and they circle up the hill, and I thought, well, stink. It's sunrise. I've been hunting for about an hour. It's been shooting light for almost 45 minutes to an hour now. And I went, okay, well, I'm going to settle those guys down. Nobody barked. They didn't run super hard. I didn't think the hunt was busted. I just think I need to get back on them. So I thought, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to make some coffee. So I get my chair out and I get my coffee out, and I'm just about to start boiling water. And I hear a bugle. It sounds like the same bull. So I go, okay, well, here we go. I put my chair back in my pack, and I walk up the hill. I hike all the way to the top of the hill. And at this time, it's, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. By the time I get to the top of the hill, and I'm cow calling, and I'm hearing these, bulls call. And by the time I get to the top of the mountain, I'm hearing not just one bull call. I'm hearing multiple cows and like 6 or 7 different bulls are piping off from all over the top of this mountain. And they're within 400 yards of my camp. So I really could have just stayed in bed and it would have been just fine. But now I've got, 3 miles on. And so I find these elk at the top of the mountain. And when I get up there, it's a rut fest. Bulls are screaming everywhere. And these bulls are locking horns and fighting on the top of the mountain, which is just an incredible sight to behold, to watch these elk fighting each other to the death for the right to breed these cows. And when bulls are doing that, that's basically a satellite bull and a mature bull are fighting for dominance to see who can take these cows away. And when this is happening, satellite bulls are typically moving around the herd trying to spot and find who the cow that's in heat is, which cow's ready to breed. And that's when they get their opportunities. And so I'm just cow calling, and all of a sudden below me, here comes a cow looking for the cow that's in the woods somewhere, just calling all by herself and just trying to figure out who it is that's talking to him. And so I shut up, and then I turn around, and here's a spike, and he's at about 35 yards, and he's just staring into the woods, not looking at me. I'm standing still. I'm right in front of a tree, and so I've got good cover behind me, and I'm not moving, and this bull he won't leave. And so for about 10 or 15 minutes, he's just standing in front of me, and I'm standing there trying not to move because I don't want to spook him. The rut fest is going on behind him. And finally, I realize that either he's going to turn around and lose interest really quick, or he's not, and he's going to see me. And so I have to figure out what I'm going to do. And so I figured, well, okay, how many times have I gone home after an elk hunt without meat? Well, this is my 4th elk season, and I haven't gone home with meat yet. So I've had a lot of tag soup in the last few years. I'm hungry. So I think I'm going to give it a chance. If he's going to give me a shot, I'm going to take it. So I knock an arrow on my bow, and the bull doesn't see me knock an arrow. And so I put my release on the string, and he looks up and sees movement, I guess, and is looking at me. And he's staring at me just straight on. He's full frontal shot. And I draw my bow, and he doesn't move. He doesn't run. And I'm thinking, well, he's just going to make me shoot him. And I settle my pins on his chest, and he's still staring at me. And I let the arrow fly, and it buried right in the front of his chest up to the fletch. And I knew that he was dead, because I don't think that there is a deadlier shot for an elk than a frontal shot. And the reason I think that is because it goes right through the heart normally. Right through the heart, right into the pericardium, right through the diaphragm. So it breaks the diaphragm and that barrier between the back and front organs, and so the blood just is going to go crazy. It goes through the lungs and the liver. There's a really good sized hole to put an arrow through in the front of an elk. I don't hope for that shot. I hope for a broadside shot, because there's just a lot more room for forgiveness on a broadside shot. But that's what he gave me, and I knew if I got an arrow to stick in, I was going to get him. And he didn't move, and I let the arrow fly, and it buried to the fletch, and I knew right then that I was tagged out. And it was September 4th, like my first or my second morning of hunting, my first morning on my spot. And I had the mountain to myself. There wasn't a soul there but me. And it was really awesome. So you can see within that story, there's a bunch of information that you got, right? You got information about kill zones on an elk. You got information about wind in the mountains and thermals. You got information about where to find elk, north facing side of of the mountain. They like to eat in the hunt. They like to hang around old burns. So you got information in that. So a hunting story, you'll find those in magazines, and they give you a lot of good information. So you got to become a reader if you're going to learn how to hunt. Then you have to watch. So, and especially when it comes to stalking and spot and stalk, if you can do mountain mule deer and things like that, backcountry muleys, you've got to learn how to stalk and be patient and go slow and realize that you've got, more opportunity and more time than maybe you think you do. And it all has to do with your patience level and things like that. And watching hunters do their thing, watching them bugle and watching them play back and forth with an elk in terms of calling, those things are educational. And they're inspiring also, because they show you what it looks like when other people put the work in and have success, or even the attitude that they have when they don't have success. So, the whole deal has a lot to do with watching other people do it. It makes a big difference. So you gotta be a reader, and then you have to be a watcher. And then the third thing I think you got to do if you're going to learn to be a hunter is you have to get outside. You have to start putting some rubber to the road when it comes to finding elk or finding deer. And this is all, like, forget about the gear, because you can literally spend, the cheapest amount of money you can on gear. I don't recommend doing that, because you'll end up paying again for good gear that will actually keep you in the mountains and help you in the morning when light's low and you need to find the elk or to find the deer, and you have binos that are this $25 Tascos you get from Walmart. You're not going to see squat early in the morning. You're going to have to put money into some mid-range binos, $500 binoculars, at least a $500 to $700 spotting scope to see that early morning, right before first light. That stuff matters in terms of that, but you don't have to do that to get started hunting. But all gear aside, and this is the point of my get outdoors, you get a feel for how the mountains act. You get a feel for what it's like to go off trail and do what we call bushwhacking, where you're carving your own trail. You're walking up a mountain that animals walk up and not a marked trail on a map. That takes some courage to do if you've never done it. And the reason it does is because it's easy if you stay on the trail, you don't get lost. You get off the trail, you could get lost. And that's just real. That absolutely is a possibility. I have a really good sense of direction, and so I don't get lost really easily in the woods. But if you're in a very thick, dark timber where there's a ton of trees, you can get lost really easily. So you have to gain some level of comfort and figure out how to get your bearings if you do get lost, and how to follow yourself in and out of an area, and what to look for. How do you know if the elk sign you're looking at, or the deer sign you're looking at, or the coyote sign you're looking at, or whatever it is fresh, is recent, is valuable information. Maybe you want to set up trail cameras to see if you can find out where they're moving. All that stuff matters. So, my advice to you would be, you've absolutely got to read things. Get a subscription to Peterson's Bowhunter, or Bowhunter magazine, or the Western Hunter. I love the Western Hunter. That's a great magazine. And then watch. Born and Raised Outdoors have taught me a ton about how to elk hunt. And I've listened to, and this should this should be in there also, not just watch and not just read, but listen. There's tons of podcasts out there, just like this one. And you can listen to people talk about their experience hunting and how they go about it, and other people, how they got into it, and interviews and things like that. And it's all really valuable stuff that you can do. So with all of that being said, being outdoors is the application of that information. And for me, I have to do the thing to learn how to do the thing. I don't just take in the information and then all of a sudden learn. I have to actually apply that information to an activity for me to actually learn how to do it and have it stuck into my brain so that I know how. I would say now I feel confident that most seasons I could go out and kill an elk. There's other things that I don't think I know how to kill. I don't have the first clue how to kill a moose, even though I want to, and I put in for a moose tag every year. But rest assured, if I draw that tag or buy that hunt in another state, I'm going to kill. I'm going to kill the information. I can't guarantee that I'll kill the animal, but I'm going to kill the information. I'm going to do everything I can to devour that information so that I am as prepared as I can be, because the fact of the matter is, I don't want to waste my time and money on a hunt that I can't be certain, or at least relatively sure, that I know how to find the animal that I want to hunt. So get yourself outdoors. That's the point. Get yourself outdoors. Apply the information and find the elk. And you're gonna find, I think, that when you do that, your love of the outdoors will grow. I love to backpack. I love to backpack hunt. I love to hike and be outdoors and scout in the summertime. I love it. I just love it. It's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing. So, my encouragement to you, you are a brand new hunter. You've never hunted before. Let me encourage you in this way. Read, watch, listen, and go outside. Do all of those things. And you will find that the information, at least, will make you ready for what you'll experience on the mountain when it's go time and the hunt's right there in front of you. But Cody Rich from The Rich Outdoors, one of my favorite podcasts. He's on Patreon now. He used to just be regular in the App Store, but he's on Patreon now. Cody Rich has this saying, it's all about the at-bats. The more at-bats you get, the more your batting average is going to go up, and when it comes to hunting. And I think that's 100% true. You learn when to move, when not to move, when to be aggressive, when to not be aggressive. You learn a feel for how it works for you, and how you can read the elk that you're dealing with, or the deer that you're dealing with, or whatever it is. So there's a lot of wisdom to that, I think. And so you got to give yourself as many at-bats as possible. And I think at-bats without a bow in your hand, when you're in the outdoors and finding animals and watching them and seeing where they go, like, get up super early on, in the spring and summer. Well, not too early in the spring if you're going to go to the mountains, but in the summertime, go up and camp and get up super early and try and be where you think the elk are going to be, and watch them. Watch those bulls' horns grow all summer, and figure out the one you want to shoot, where he's at, if that's how you want to do it, or where the big group is, so you can get any elk. It doesn't matter. But get outside. Find someone who will do that with you, so that it's not boring. You've got someone to share that with. And so I know that that's not exhaustive, and that there's probably plenty of other opportunities and other methods to use and throw into this mix of how to learn how to hunt. As I kind of continue to share how to learn how to hunt and how to become a hunter, if you've never done it before and you want to, I'll look at the difference between archery and the difference between rifle hunts rather, how that plays out in your planning, the difference between, animals, the gear that I use, all that stuff. I am absolutely not your go-to person for professional information. Like there's folks out there that are absolute killers that are successful every year. As you are diving into this, I want to learn how to hunt world. You're going to hear names like Ryan Lampers. Now, Ryan Lampers is a guy that I don't know that he ever eats a tag. Like every time he seems to go on a hunt, he just fills his tags, and it's not because he hunts trophies or anything like that. Even though he's picky about the animals he shoots, he wants an older age class of animal, and he says it's because he's been so successful. He wants a challenge. So, and those older bulls, those older deer, those older moose, whatever it is he's hunting, they know how to survive, and so they go into the nastiest areas, and that's where Ryan Lampers goes to get them. And listening to him talk, man, he's a stone cold killer. There's just no way that you can be more successful, I think, at hunting than he is. So I'm not the end-all be-all in terms of information, but I'm going to share the information I have to help you get started, and that's really the point of this. So